Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are in the wide world of sport. Welcome to our third webinar in our series. The webinar is going to start in a second or two. If I could ask you to switch to presenter view, feel free to ask questions via the conversation panel if you'd like to, and we'll try and answer those at the end of the webinar. Have your PC speakers and headsets live, obviously, so you can hear us. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. Hopefully it'll be interesting for you. So let's start the webinar. Okay. So what we're going to try and talk about today is sustainability, how important it is as a business. My name is Chris Waterhouse. I'd like to welcome to this third and final one in the series. Sorry that the summer is rolling to a close, but it kind of is. Depending on if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, then it'll be okay. It's just warming up. In the webinar, we'll look at bringing together the business and the eco story, how it all links together to make an outstanding and compelling business opportunity for us all, simply, effectively, within the technologies available to us. This is not the knee-jerk politics and bandwagons of NGOs or governments or whatever. This is doing it in a practical, pragmatic and effective way, what we call real life. So I will now run on to the next one. Okay, so very briefly, what we're going to be looking at today is why it's so important to consider sustainability, how we must evolve to survive as businesses, where we need to start making the right decisions, and take you through a little bit of a couple of case studies through the IDI pack sustainability timeline and some thoughts on that. As I say, some case studies and some final thoughts, challenges. We'll recap on the PDP. And one of my favourite quotes at the moment, to be honest, in terms of all this sustainability stuff that's kicking around, we can't solve a problem by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created those problems. So Albert Einstein, clever guy. I think we ought to take a bit of notice of that. Okay, so we must evolve. We want to survive. So some quick definitions briefly. Folks use the same thing in many different ways, different meanings. So just to get us all on the same page, the eco approach, looking at solutions that affect the planet. Oftentimes the green approach, the bio approach, that's the mantra that we're hearing. We're going to be looking at sustainable materials, maybe changing materials, considering a better supply chain. And of course the packaging designer's mantra of reduce, reuse, recycle, maybe reclaim, maybe replace, or whatever going forward. And secondly, the business drivers, reducing costs, creation of flexibility in the supply chain, deliver benefit, demonstrate commitment going forward in the wider dialogue, and better to manage or at least influence positively the social media story. We know how damaging the negativity of social media is when it goes viral. The Costa with the cups and the rubbish on the beach, all that kind of stuff. And reducing costs, this has to be a business positive, and with the rest, creating agility, a positive external perception of your business, all key to long-term business sustainability, and that's what we're all about. Okay, so where do we start? Everyone wants to see positive change, and some little bit of stats, and it shows how far behind we are in the UK. In the UK, we sent something like 48.2 million tonnes of waste to landfill in 2014. They're from the government figures. 91.1 million tonnes went to recycling and recovery. You know, it would argue there's something like 30 or 40% of the waste in the UK goes to landfill. Globally, we dump a massive 2.12 billion tonnes of waste annually. That's the estimate. If all this waste was put on trucks, they would nose to tail go around the world 24 times. Think of the CO2 levels with that if they all started at the same time. Employers, governments, all those people. There's a lack of coherence of policy, reticence in incentivization. The press, the stakeholders, and so forth all want change. So listen to what's coming back through these different channels. Look at the different conventional and social media channels. Take really good advice. Understand what you can do to affect change positively. That's the approach. That's what we've got to do. I mean, look at the example there with the Amazon box. The waste in the bales, you know, some of it goes to landfill, some of it goes to recycle. You know what? We've got to do more to do these sorts of things. Okay, so shaping the first step on this particular road is the fact you've got a corporate social responsibility. Everything from the smallest business to the largest business. You've got to shape that. And how do we shape it? Developing the strategy, making it coherent, holistic in its view, delivered what is going to be through a hugely helpful process is innovation road mapping. Considering the cost, the supply chain, the innovation, innovative design, material experts, bring those all into play. Take advice from whoever have the best ideas. Bizarrely, some of those actually come from government, not often, but equally those that are working day in, day out in the industry. They're really important to providing the really good information in the field. Be proud of what you're able to create through the innovation road mapping and your corporate social responsibility. Use the publicity positively. At the end of the day, you start to engage with different businesses, engage with those businesses that are trying to help you and sometimes knock you down, actually. You demonstrate commitment, demonstrate understanding, demonstrate the excellent work through your staff, through your teams to support the targets. It's all about considering what's the worst that can happen in the environment through the packaging used. And by that, what I mean is where disposal takes place. Sometimes it's not all about the recycle routes and all those sorts of things. Sometimes it ranges from the formal waste bin all the way to the car window. Do we really want stuff thrown out car windows? Probably not. Can we change behaviours? Probably not. It's happening. And at the end of the day, coming down the, waste down the river from the beach in Bali, that's not about the West. It's about other folks in different parts of the world as well. Okay. So making the right decision. Number of routes we can take for the sustainability story. We have the reduce, we have the supply chain optimization, we have changing materials. Those sorts of things are all available to us. So the lighter weights, more per pallet, denser packaging systems, square versus round. We have some examples just here. Water guys, one of the cheapest things, and some would argue some of the most expensive stuff on the planet. These items, rectangular bottles, moving now towards laminates. On the face of it, that should be great, but it's a laminate. So where does that go? So we're going to look at all that kind of stuff. Optimizing materials to compostable. Again, we have some fiber-based stuff here. We have some different coconut fiber, and the technology, liners, sugar beet-based liners. All different shapes, sizes, all available these days. And then there's the second life packs, the diaper container that I've talked about previously that became a crate. The shipper that becomes a toy car or a house for the child to play in. The outer pack that becomes a coat hanger. All extend the life of the packaging solution. And then the incentives. Supermarkets recycling coupons for refillable PET or recycled PET container returns. That is happening. It's happening on the continent. It's starting to happen in the UK now. Beer bottles return to the supermarket in the crate. And then in Switzerland and other places, the cost to actually dump waste to landfill or to waste. At the end of the day, if you incentivize or make there a cost associated with disposal, inevitably you tend to be in a situation where the behavior changes in a good way, reducing the amount of waste. Positives and negatives with all these approaches, but adopting a coherent, holistic view and applying this little bit of common sense, we really can do something sensible for sustainability for the planet and for the business. So our little timeline here, we've looked at the kind of approach, and what we have is a number of steps on the road. So we've got little wins, bigger wins, winning the race. Okay, we can optimize the existing. We've got material changes. At the end of the day, all these things can be done and taken through the process. We create benefit, moving from what we call the sustainability line, we call it. Contributing everything in a small way. So chaos theory, doesn't that butterfly flaps its wings in the Amazon and then it becomes a tsunami in Japan? Not sure it's a good analogy, but by taking small steps, we can deliver the great change as a whole. So little wins, optimize, understand in the supply chain, replacement of goods, cost of disposal, extra vehicle movements, all those things are really important. Supply chain waste, all cost and all waste that gets dumped somewhere. Consider e-commerce, a really important area, which I'll come on to in a minute. and the impact of the conventional packaging systems and whether they can deal with e-commerce type situation. Look at the reductions in complexity, but doesn't that fly in the face of personalization, that challenge that we're all working on? Consider late stage customization. Consider a decentralized supply chain. Consider development of technologies and formats that allow the supply chain to deliver what it thinks it's capable of. It isn't capable of, sorry. Those huge strides forward using the material technologies that have developed so well. The PLAs, the rPET, the biomaterials, the compostable materials, FSC timbers, papers. Supply chains are growing to meet the demand, but there's not almost always sufficiently well it's not almost in a position as well as the old systems, the old materials. But we are getting there, and a bit like British Rail in the 80s, we're getting there now. Okay, so a little bit more about the little wins, the tweak to the packaging system that delivers better palletization. So e-commerce specific packs. Now, one thing that for me that's got back to me a little while back, we ordered a new bin for the kitchen, and the bin turned up in its fancy packaging, lovely retail packaging, you know, and it wasn't a cheap bin, it was an expensive bin. Lo and behold, open the box, bit of a dink in the side of the bin. There was a stainless steel bin. That was scrap. Something like, in terms of statistics, something like the waste from e-commerce, 30% of all ordered products are returned from online sales. That's the stats. 20% through damage. 23% the wrong items delivered, those sorts of things. But you know what? That makes a massive difference. So actually understanding the e-commerce world, understanding the safety on the pallet, understanding the palletization, we may have to tweak the existing packaging designs, maybe reduce the damage. That's, as I said, that's the major impact. Find eco cost savings. At the end of the day, the more stuff we can put on a truck, the less CO2, the more efficient the loads, and all those sorts of good things. So palletization optimization, really important. Getting e-commerce right, equally important. Probably more so in actual fact. And then we look at reducing packaging and Skus. So we were asked to work on something for a client. It was a pharmaceutical product. We were asked to reduce the complexity in the supply chain. They had a lot of components, a lot of printed components. Had a real problem with the supply chain, with the supply base, lots of smaller orders, and also the manufacturing systems. So we helped them by looking and revisiting and redesigning the supply chain system and the manufacturing line to actually create a system where the packaging was more fit for purpose. It was fit for purpose in a new world. It took advantage from those. The benefits out of this were really important. And the effective design, the understanding of the design, getting right under the skin of it, gave us a real lot of benefit. Not least of which was the manufacturing efficiency, not least of which was a reduction in waste, not least of which was the more efficient packaging system. And on the packaging line, we built in anti-counterfeit technologies. We delivered an extension to the product life and gave more confidence in the supply chain and in the marketplace. It reduced the cost of goods. So again, there's some business sustainability as a result of packaging benefit, and hugely important for this particular company. Okay, so then we look at supply chain redesign. Supply chain redesign. So a lot of time has been spent traditionally in centralizing the supply chain. Go back to bigger plants, those sorts of things. Is that necessarily the case? Maybe there's a hybrid model, actually. In this particular scenario, the client was looking at packing small packets of, in the Far East, in the Asian markets, small packets of liquids, liquid products. Liquid products were hazardous goods. There were, in the marketplace, by a number of suppliers, number of packers, lots of different versions. There were sachets, there were PET pockets, thermoforms, glass vials, all sorts of stuff that, from a sustainability perspective, weren't great. They were also a bit non-PC, if you like. They were creating the waste, they were creating user danger, the way of opening these packs. Unsafe, stewardship issues, not great. In fact, some farmers were opening them with their teeth. So this is a sachet being opened with your teeth, full of chemicals. Not great, not safe, not good. We developed a solution that allowed us to deliver the packs into the marketplace as a mass-filled, safely, large plant type scenario, but then we moved to a decentralized supply chain for the packing element. So the packing was done in warehouses, out in the field, under the control of the company, but it created an environment where we could late stage, we could control stock levels, we could reduce the cost because we're using the local labor, local facilities, using a very simple mechanism for actually doing the packing, and actually creating an environment where the farmers were able to get what they needed, small quantities, in a safe way and a good way. Benefits all round. And in fact, from a sustainable, from an eco perspective as well, historically, the glass vials, the bits and pieces of paper and film and thermoform tray, they were all thrown in a ditch. With this scenario, where actually at least the stuff that when it was being disposed was clean, it could then be disposed of in a safe way in the normal channels. Okay, so at the end of the day, it's not going to be easy. There will be challenges. There are huge challenges facing us. So we've heard that rPET is a great product. It is a great product. There's no doubt about it. But the materials, are they available in the required quantities? The biomaterials, they claim to be compostable. Yes, they are compostable. The most of them need industrial scale composting, technologies that are not great, or they are great, sorry, but they aren't available easily and conveniently. So that means, do we need to send trucks many, many hundreds of miles? What about the CO2 levels coming out of those? That's not going to be acceptable. We talk about the traffic jams on the road. For those of you in the UK listening to every morning, traffic jams, with all the belching smoke and CO2 and that kind of stuff. Congestion charges all over the place. So how much effort are companies actually putting into these developments? How many eco developments have been canned because of the cost of goods? Frequently. And these are some of the challenges. And then there's people, the inertia of behaviour. Keep Britain Tidy has been running in the UK for many, many years. However, if you look down the highways and byways, the amount of waste clearly indicates a lack of commitment. And that's common in France, in Italy, in all over Europe, without being specific. It's the same across the continent. Waste on a beach in Bali comes down from the mountains, down the rivers. There aren't many of us in this webinar, I don't suppose, that have actually been to Bali. So why is it actually down to us? It's a lot of in the West, we pick up the bad press because it's the indigenous folks are maybe not learning and picking up the same information we can have. And actually the publicity is all coming because holidays are being spoilt by the Westerners who are actually going out there. But the materials and technologies that we've developed over the years, plastics, they actually work really well. They are great systems. And the recycling schemes are well known. People understand them. Maybe it's a radical thought. Wouldn't it be improving existing schemes, improve the sorting, improve the behaviour, rather than paper over the cracks with some compostable stuff that doesn't necessarily work as well as the current incumbents? A challenging thought. And maybe that's something that's part of a holistic view of the way you're looking at what you're doing. The right materials might actually be the existing materials, but let's do them better. But maybe think doing them a bit differently. And how do we dispose of them? How do we create something that's useful? Okay. So William Pollard, not that I'm a Quaker as such, but it's quite an interesting quote. He is a Quaker minister. And what he said was, without change, there's no innovation, creativity or incentive for improvement. Those who initiate change will have a better opportunity to manage the change that is inevitable. Inevitably, we will change. We've got to innovate. We've got to deliver benefit to solve the problems in a sustainable way. At the end of the day, the refrigeration guys have sorted out the CFCs. Bisphenols, all sorted. PVC free. There's all sorts of badges, FSC, whatever you want. There's always something that's being talking about sustainability. At the end of the day, there are lots and lots of ways. But again, you've got to look at stuff in a complete way, sensible way, and an appropriate way that gives us what we want on an ongoing basis. And at the end of the day, from a scenario point of view, not making a move is a gamble. But there is sometimes absolute ridiculousness from the brands. And I'll tell you a little story that happened in this office last week. So maybe I won't. Okay. this is a computer printer. Okay, the computer printer. This was a printer that was purchased, and it's photoshopped onto the beach. I'm sorry about that. This printer was purchased 18 months ago. Not cheap. Laser printer, CMYK, double-sided, duplex, all good stuff. We went to replace the toner cartridges last week, and we were quoted for toner cartridge for this printer, which cost about £350. We were quoted £360 for a set of CMYK toner cartridges. At the time, I kind of thought, oh, that's a bit rich, a bit expensive. But hey ho, if we need it, we've got to print stuff. That's what we need. Placed the order. Company came back and said, are you sure you want to buy this stuff? Why? Well, I said, yes, we do. So, well, actually, what we can do is sell you a new printer. Bear in mind, this one's only 18 months old. A new printer for £208 in the UK. There's all sorts of discounts from the brand. And in terms of toner cartridges, you can have actually more toner cartridges, more pages for the black and a little bit less for the colours. You know what? I thought that's a good deal. Half the price. So does that mean we're going to throw away a new printer every 18 months now? Or maybe less? Every time you want to change a toner, why wouldn't you buy a new printer? Now, what's happening with those? Are they being recycled? Maybe. But a lot of it is going to end up being scrapped and end up in landfill. I'm sure it is. It's not ideal. It's not packaging, I know. But the packaging that goes with that was massive. It came by DPD couriers. Lots of waste. A lot of waste that was all ended up in a recycle bin. But you know what? It's still going to be sorted. It's still going to be dealt with. It's still going to create energy. Or going to use energy to get it back into the situation. So maybe the brands have to think a little bit more about how they're dealing with stuff. Maybe how they're pricing stuff. PDP. We talked very briefly. This is a quick rerun of the case study of last time. So we were asked to create some sustainable material for ready meal trays. Various materials around, lots of materials. We ran it through the PDP process. Key things, the characteristics of the material, temperature, retain its shape, suitable for conventional microwave use, formable into trays, and all the other bits and pieces about how it looks, compatible with existing material. All those key things were about the brief. From that, we created team engagement through the PDP process because everyone was engaged with it. Collaboration, the environmental brief was met, and we're then into pressboard trays and with liners. Single SKU as a pilot, and from there more SKUs are planned. Phase 2 is multi-compartment trays. Hugely important program, hugely important in terms of reducing plastic in the aisles and moving forward on that. Great stuff. That's where the PDP process really can deliver some change from an eco perspective. So at the end of the day, what we're going to do, we've got to do something. Do we want our businesses to become unsustainable, like Woolworths, like Blockbuster, like Polo Kodak, or so many others we discussed in other webinars? We've got to evolve, we've got to grow, we've got to lead the way. Talk with us, review and discuss opportunities for your strategy and approach. Talk about the innovation workshops. Hugely important. If you want to get on this train, you've got to get to the station first and then plough through the countryside looking at good stuff. We'll reach out and get your views after this if you want, if you'd like to. And we're happy to rerun this event as a company event. Share it with your colleagues. It'll be available on our website later on. We can, of course, update these for your specific needs and run the various workshops, PDP, or maybe come and talk to us. Talk to us at the packaging events that we're at in the coming weeks. Okay, catch and get a cup of coffee. Just very quickly as IDI Pack, I've got to do this stuff. IDI Pack as a business, product and supply chain challenges through effective design and pragmatically engineered packaging supply chain solutions. We look at it holistically as a business. We look at the challenge, always pragmatic, always engineered, and always a sensible solution. That's what we're proud of, and that's what we do day in, day out. We provide them with the practical expertise. Giving them a wider perspective. That's what we do. We're established in 2008, and we're all about solutions. That's what we do. Every time. Very important to us to give you what you need, the right solution at the right time. sorts of people we're working in food, we're working in cosmetics, we're working in pharmaceuticals, agrochemicals, a variety of industries, all producing good stuff. Judge us by the company we keep. That's what we do. That's what we look after them. And there you go from there. So thank you for your kind attention today as we approach the end. I'm just looking at some of this is our contact details. I'm just looking to see if we've got any questions, actually. Okay, so chap called Tim from Birmingham. Afternoon, Tim. 30% returns in e-commerce. That's a massive load to any business. Any thoughts on that? Okay, yeah, well, at the end of the day, it's all about picking the correct packaging. You need to test the coat with the couriers. It's a very simple thing. If it's and a small example, if it's posted through the letterbox, some markings on the pack that say just post it in the correct direction through the letterbox, and make sure that the package has bumpers inside it, some kind of suspension to protect the goods inside if that's a problem. Hugely important. Just understand the supply chain, understand how it goes through the supply chain, understand the challenges in there, understand how to do it properly, because that will reduce waste. It'll improve the e-commerce story. The chances are you'll be able to lightweight if you do it correctly as well. It's labeling, it's the supply, the design of the packs, and all those sorts of good things. The Corrugate guys are fantastic at this, and we've done a bunch of these things when building in e-commerce strategies for clients. Okay, the next one is a lady called Sandra from Basel in Switzerland. Welcome to you. Late stage looks very interesting. Tell me a little bit more about the benefits of decentralization. Okay, so I can't go into a lot of sensitive commercial detail. The fundamental is that the high level benefits are typically less damage. We also create a situation where if we're late staging, we tend to be more efficient in our packaging of our bulk packs. So we bulk packs, we get more items per unit, per pallet, whatever it happens to be, per truckload. And what that gives us then is we ship from large sites running very efficiently, generic packs. We then take it into the lower cost markets where we're building in flexibility, we're building in security, and the cost base typically is much better at that point. Better for the safety of users, less splash in terms of that particular one, and contamination on clothing. Really important program for the particular client. Hugely important for them as a business. Grew the market significantly, and actually started to improve the safety in the marketplace as well. So very conscious of time. I now have to wrap this up. This is the last of the spring series. We will have it available on our website. Any subjects you'd be interested in or in our views on, please feel free to reach out. We can look to incorporate that into our program going forward. We will be doing some more in the coming weeks and months. Hope you enjoyed it. Welcome be in touch for more detailed discussion, of course. Please connect with us via LinkedIn. Follow us on Twitter, ID IPAC Limited. Looking forward to speaking to you again soon. Thanks for joining us again from the sunny UK, although it's not quite so sunny just now. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate that.